This is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, where we seem to be here and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And, you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of, it's, you know, it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you. And clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one. Or
Cosmic resonance, that's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. And just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention, it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, you know, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
All right, we are live. Happy Good Friday. We have Paul Cook, Michelle Gibson, and BurnEye. How are you, beautiful souls?
Hi, everybody.
I'm all good.
As promised last week.
Yeah, I've had a bit of a nightmare with the Wi-Fi, so it's I'm actually blessed to have a Wi-Fi connection for a whole day. So I'm making the most of it with you guys.
Right, you kept me up because your live streams were so good that I only got 3 hours of sleep, but I'm back, I'm refreshed, and you know, the monoatomic water, it does help.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
It's really exciting because my work got started with field work. I started noticing things in the environment around me, and then I started going looking. And then when I went to look, I got a whole bunch of information in return. And Paul does such an awesome job with his field work. And, you know, it's just a huge difference. You can find things online, and if that's all you have, it works. But if you can actually go and see a place in situ, there's just a whole lot more information available to find. It's actually quite exciting. And I'll let Paul talk about some of his experiences.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to start. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if you two guys know, but about 5 years ago is when I first met you two guys in Malta. Online, by the way. Do you know that? You were the first.
I had an idea.
I spoke to in the whole of YouTube. So it's mad that 5 years later we're here doing this, eh?
Yeah,
right.
This is wonderful.
It's crazy, isn't it? But yeah,
It works. It's true. I'd like to kind of pick a starting point for us, Paul, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I did a little bit of research on a place that you've done a lot of research. And so I've got the, you look it up story about it, and you've got the, hey, I've actually been there and this is what I found. And I'm talking about the Williamson tunnels in Liverpool. And I'm going to go ahead and hit my screen share here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because I've got pictures.
Yay! Michelle lessons.
It is
a really good Friday.
So I've done a whole bunch of series on places that people have suggested, and I have to say that my first round of receiving information came from the alignments that I found, and then when I started looking at places people suggested, I got a whole nother stream of information coming in of places that I would have no other reason to look. So this has just, really led to even more breakthroughs for me in terms of, somebody saying, hey, check this out, and I'll go look at it. And it just puts the pieces of the puzzle together even more. And the other interesting thing about having done that process is that invariably, when I would sit down to do my research, and it always starts out in my blog, a theme would take on that was not planned. It's really kind of cool. So the Williamson tunnels is in the Edge Hill area of Liverpool. And Edge Hill, I mean, there's clues in the words. Edge Hill.
There's so much in Liverpool going on, by the way.
Edge on the edge. And I'll let you talk about that, Paul. So what we're told in the BS version of history is the Williamson tunnels were said to have been built under the direction of tobacco merchant Joseph Williamson between 1810 and 1840, but they don't know why. The purpose of the work remains unclear. And that the majority of the tunnels are comprised of brick or stone with vaulting over excavations in the underlying sandstone, as the tunnels were said to gradually become infilled with rubble in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, with excavation starting in 1995. So the excavation showed a large network of tunnels, chambers, and voids. And I wanted to start there because, Paul, I know you spent quite a bit of time there. And I'm going to stop sharing here. I can go back if I need to.
I'm going to see if I've got my videos on here, pictures as well. Basically, the Williamson tunnels, I don't know if you know about this, but it's actually broken up into different tourist attractions. So there's actually 3 sets of Williamson tunnels in the Edge Hill area. You've got the Williamson tunnels, and then you've got the Friends of the Williamson tunnels, and then you've got another one of the Friends of the Williamson tunnels. But when you Google it, you only get given one option. It's people like us, we have to really dig for it, and then you find the other ones. But they're all connected underground, and they broke it up into individual tourist attractions.
They compartmentalize it.
Exactly.
Hey, like they have to hide it. Oh, it's not one big thing. No, don't study it as that. There's 3 of them.
It's the same as in Malta. When I went to the catacombs in Malta, I actually went through the barriers underground and went through. And I thought, you know what? I'm in here. No one's going to stop me. No cameras about. I'm going through. And I went through to another part of the catacombs. And I ended up in another one that was another catacombs, but it was meant to be a Jewish one. So in Rabat, you had the Jewish one, the Christian one, and pagan. So you had these 3 catacombs, and they said they're all individual. But when I went down the steps under the rope, I ended up in another one. They're all connected underground, all of them, the whole lot. And it's the same with the Williamson tunnels. And I think that because we've just built directly on top of it, you don't think anything of it. You wouldn't even know it was there. But another thing that I noticed when you was talking about Edge Hill, that train station of Edge Hill is identical to the one in Malta that's done in the limestone, and that is that's incredible. And another thing that I've noticed is the whole of Nottingham, Liverpool, parts of Manchester, and all the way down the West Midlands is all this sandstone and limestone, and that's where all these nuggets are. And and another thing I did, I looked at a map on the ley lines, and it was one map that I just pulled off Google Earth. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, this is everywhere I've been. And it was I can't remember the name of the ley line, but it was all over this what I call the golden layer. And I was like, mate, there must be a connection there or something. And another thing I noticed about the Williamson tunnels, it was layered. So you had red sandstone and yellow sandstone. I don't know if you've noticed that down there. So you've got layers and segments of different coloured sandstone. Now, if that's meant to be sedimentary rock, how comes at one point, like in the narrative in a million years, iron oxide got added to it? You know, and then how comes it went back to being yellow sandstone? And another thing I'm going to add is, like, like when you sit there and think of sandstone, I'm sorry, I'm going a bit geological here, but when you sit there and think of sandstone, it's a bit of a paradigm, a bit of a paradox, because it's sand but stone. I don't know, that just really don't stick with me. And when you look at sandstone, it's like it's a load of grains of sand, like compact together and held together by some sort of crystalline structure, which is obviously the geopolymer. Because the geopolymer is, how do I say it? Is the way it's different from concrete, cement, and concrete, is that it actually crystallizes over time, and that's what makes it stronger and stronger. So
it's a chemical reaction, a chemical bond, as opposed to that sedimentary. And like I took geology a bit in academia, post-secondary, and it's like every point you're making right here, Paul, is so crucial, and that it's like once. Like I have learned everything that you were saying about your like blueprint of this red gold sandstone geopolymer. I've started noticing it everywhere in North America and everywhere around the world that we look, from Petra, Egypt, to the UK, to Malta, to America.
Exactly.
It's literally everywhere.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to add, Michelle, is when you was giving us the little script about what the BS story was, was you aware that the military were down there for 2 years? Did you know that? Right. I think when you go on the trip down there, they tell you this. That's how I know. So you go down there and they tell you the military actually set up shop down there, and no one was allowed to go around there. I think this is in the early 1900s, I believe. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the tour guide was saying that the military set up shop down there and spent 2 years down there. Now, what are the military doing down there for 2 years? Well, we know what they're doing. They're dismantling it, making it look like it's natural, making it look like it's a lot older than what it is, and then blocking up stuff. Because when you're down there, you look around, you can just see blocked up tunnels. You can see there's actually multiple times when you turn a corner and you can see rubble that's coming down the stairs and just left there.
Right. And they're doing humanizing it, or doing community labor sanitizing.
Exactly.
For all we know, there's energy reasons for them to be down there also.
Yeah, they could be doing anything.
Deep underground military base, because the underground, as we know, the underground tunnels extend worldwide also.
Yes.
And they have the same kind of, the ones that are known about have the same kind of BS stories go with them. Like Ybor City in Tampa, Florida is known for its tunnels. And the story that goes along with those is that they were, for rum running and things like that during Prohibition. Anyway, they have this whole thing.
They always come up with the most recent excuse for the creations, right? The facades.
Yeah, it's interesting. And was the ley line you were talking about the Bolinas line by any chance?
I'll have a look and see if I can find it for you, because I'm pretty sure it's on this computer. Some of my stuff's on a laptop, some of it's on a computer, but I'm pretty sure it's here because I was making a video not long ago. So if you give me a second, I'll see if I can pull it up.
Perfect. And sorry to interrupt. Before we go further, I just have to point out that we are live on 4 YouTube channels right now. We have Hijack Campbell's Autodidactic as well, and then 5, because we're on Paul Cook 1 and Paul Cook 2, and my BurnEye Minds to Die Science Guy, Crypto Alchemist, as well as on my Facebooks, my Twitch, my Twitter, and on Rumble. So we are getting out there and spreading the word, and I'm going to shut up now and let you take it away, Miss Michelle.
Okay. Paul, I'm going to go over some things that I had pulled up to talk about Megalithic in North America.
Yep.
And if you're welcome to jump in with anything. At first, when I saw Bernie's title this morning, I thought I was thinking about underground stuff, because I knew that was what Paul had been looking at that I had found. But then I thought Megalithic America, and I've got it spread out over a gazillion places. But it wasn't hard to find anything. And what I'm going to share is an awful lot like what I talked about with BurnEye and Campbell a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the head smashed in buffalo jump in Alberta. And I pulled up a picture.
I'm going to go down there this summer 100% now. Like, just looking at the pictures, there was so much of it.
So there's a megalithic wall there. But what they tell us is that's where the buffalo would, or the First Nations would run buffalo off so that they would jump off the side of it and they would collect the kill at the bottom. It's the whole look here, not here thing. And I'm going to give some examples of that. And I think I'll go with where I was going to start anyway. And then there's a few other places I've added to my tabs up here. But along the lines of look here, not there, I want to share with you what you find at Heavener Runestone State Park in Oklahoma. Now, this was early in my waking up to all this stuff. I was starting to see what was actually in the environment around me. And I became really interested in the Heavener Runestone State Park because back about 9 or 10 years ago, when I was really first trying to find information out, there was a YouTube channel called the Redneck Archaeologist. And this guy lived in this area. And he was talking about things he was finding here. And I got really interested because I hadn't started to do my own research yet, but I knew there was something really cool to find. And I lived close enough that I could go and see it. And I'm going to talk about Mount Magazine also, which is in the same area of the Ouachita Mountains in Oklahoma. And so when I went there with my friends the first time, we went to outside the park. So the runestone is actually in the center of like a canyon. And a canyon is actually a cover-up word for infrastructure, like bluff.
That's good. That's good. I just want to I just want to jump in here because the only reason I say that the Grand Canyon isn't man-made is because I have no explanation for it because of the macro size of it. That's where I sit with it, and I haven't been there, so but I am on that fence.
Right, and there's so much that we haven't been told that we just kind of have to figure out on our own. Mm-hmm. But I think the important thing is we've been told everything is natural. There was nothing megalithic in North America. At least in North America, it was land free for the taking. And this is the outskirts of the park where they have the runestone. So if they have a couple of picnic tables around there, but you can clearly see that there's a wall there. And I've got other pictures. This just happened to be the most accessible to me right at the moment. So when they take you back to where the runestone is in the center of this area, they have this big wooden structure over it. And that was probably one of their first ones, but it kind of looks, let me see. Anyway, that's the structure they have it in now. It's this big wooden structure. It kind of takes up everybody's attention. You're not paying attention to the so-called sedimentary rock with the ledge overhanging it. You're not looking at the the masonry down here and the steps. You're not looking at the fountain.
Yeah, I call these props, Michelle. That's what I call them. Like normally in England, you have a castle made out of scraps on top of these things or around them, and people go and look at that as the tourist attraction and completely dismiss what's really going on around them. I call them props, and that's what it sounds like this wooden structure is as well.
Yeah, and totally. When I was there, all I could see was walls and things like that.
Yeah.
And there's more examples of it, but I've got a whole set of pictures that I took when I was there. You know, those are very old stone. This is in the Runestone Park. Those are very old stones there. And, you know, steps are cut out of stone as well. So they definitely don't want us to actually see what's really there. And the typical story is that they were Viking runestones, and that there was a group of Vikings that wandered into the area and carved these runes on here.
So if you don't mind me asking, because I don't know the area, when they say runestone, is that the runestone? Is that the name of the park or the name of the stone?
So that's the name of the park, and they named it after this gigantic megalithic stone with markings on it. Now, what's interesting is that if you start looking into Vril, so I've got a comparison of Norse runes and Vril here, and you've got a match with that one, you've got a match with that one, you've got a match with the R, you've got a match with that one right there. And Vril was connected with creation. It's my understanding is that it's like life force energy, and that the ancients knew how to use all of this together, and I think it went into the creation what they were able to create here, so that it was actually in script form at one time. So those would actually be like energy symbols, if that's in fact what the Norse runes actually are. And the Nazi Germans were certainly interested in Vril. You know, they had their Vril society, and the Vril, the ladies with the long hair. Forgive me, I can't remember the details.
Yeah, Orstrich, was that her name? I think maybe her last name.
Something like that. There's a whole thing of, you know, hidden secret space program stuff going along with that.
Right, but no, I know exactly what you're talking about, Michelle, and like it's bringing it all together, and that they did have this higher lost Atlantean, Lemurian energy ley line understanding, and it's like alchemical, cosmic, as above so below. And that's why it was so important that they did all their architecture as this astro architecture with the alignments to the sun and to the stars and everything.
So the Nazi Germans were interested in all the things that made humanity special. And so
Maria Orsic, yeah.
The original humans who were, you know, like superhumans. I think they were the original Aryans. And so when they destroyed that original civilization, they had to recreate their version of Superman based on what existed before. But they did it in a, you know, backwards way. They did it in a cruel way. They were able to develop psychic abilities through trauma and torture and things like that. So we were already there. We were already in touch with the cosmos. We already knew where we were and how to work with the elements. I say we, but, you know, the initiated master builders, alchemists, the builders of Malta, which we'll talk about later on, that Paul spent a lot of time in.
School.
You know, oh, Malta is just incredible. And so there's a lot to consider in terms of this cover up and what they're actually telling us. So I started out by showing you the wall outside the park. That's clearly a wall. And I've got some pictures also that I took at that time of things carved into the wall, like something that looks like a window, but it's, you know, it's not a window, but it looks like it. Kind of like a keystone shape or something.
Yeah. I've got some stuff very similar to that. I mean, I don't want to knock you off track, but I've got some pictures from a place in Hastings. If you look on the coastline, you've got church arch windows and church doors put into the how do you say it? It's like I'd call it a wall, but to normal people, it's a cliff, you know. But it don't go nowhere. It's just printed in, and it just don't make no sense being there.
Right, right. And I just want to make a point because Paul and I were talking a little bit before this, but I see a lot of terraforming of the earth. I believe that there was a lot that was man-made, but I also am very open to giants and giant trees and all the different things that
right, and that's like those are
could have
the
built on.
hokey legends of like the suns and the existence like before time, like the past ages, that they were long before us. And even in like the Bible where it's saying there was giants in those days, it would have been like the reset catastrophe before modern man, or our modern selves right now. But it's like it was still replicas of us, just everything was giant, possibly, right?
Well, absolutely. I think the grid was functioning as it was supposed to. The Earth's grid, I think everything was bigger. I think when the controllers hijacked the timeline, they reverse engineered everything and brought us the world we have today, and brought us our smaller stature, and everything's smaller. But I think when it was functioning, I think everything was bigger, and the Earth grid was enhancing life worldwide and probably universe wide, and it was being used for the benefit of all life, and free energy as well. So when it was healthy and functioning, good things were happening, and it got turned into a control grid, and that's what we're painfully living through right now.
Another thing that I've noticed is I don't know why, but I'm attracted to water. I think like I was a plumber. I love looking for water. I've spent a lot of time underground looking for the source, and in mountains and going on the boats underground looking for water. And one thing I've noticed is that it seems like a lot of the, shall we say, like if you go to the Peak District, a lot of these hills seems like they had a function. It seems like they were like my vocabulary is not going to be very good here, but sucking up water and then letting it flow down for the pressure and to hit other places. That's what it seems like. And it's
hydraulics and hydrolysis.
Yeah. And the video that I'm working on now, it seems, I feel like I've come across a humongous megalithic pyramid that has been absolutely smashed to pieces, and it's just been put into piles of 120-foot blocks. And when you're looking at the block work that's been put in these piles, you can see cylinder shapes, like perfectly round cylinder shapes, like humongous pipes, basically. And one thing I do know is that the Peak District is the centre of the United Kingdom, or the centre of England, and that's where all the fresh water's coming from. So it seems to me, and another thing is, if you go to Sheffield, there's a point underground called the Megatron, and that's where 7 rivers underground meet. So there's a junction underground where 7 rivers are meeting, and that's just outside the Peak District. And I believe, like you were saying, Michelle, when they controlled and hijacked this realm, that one of the main things they got rid of was the water supply, because we are now having water that's been treated from reservoirs, and it's got all sorts of chemicals in it. And I believe they've got rid of the natural water, and they've just redirected it into streams that end up into that are tributaries to the rivers and then end up in the sea. And there's some sort of cycle that's going on. And like people may think I'm crackers, but if you want to sit there and accept that the moon is controlling the tides, then why isn't it controlling the river? Why isn't it controlling puddles? Why isn't it controlling streams? So you can't have it best of both worlds. You're saying this water was pulling the water this way, and then when it only does it for certain parts of water. So like I was saying, I believe that one of the main things they got rid of was the water, and they've smashed all them places where they're sucking the water up, and they've just redirected it, and we're having reservoir water. And reservoir means reserve sea.
And I know for a fact, in the areas that I've lived in, once I started waking up to this, there used to be canals all over the place. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm surrounded by that where I live now. It's like dried up canals. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about the railroad tracks or anything that are here, or the railroad washes.
Right.
But there are some left close to where I am. But all that history's been removed. And there's actually a trolley car bus system that I'll every time I see one, I'm like looking at that going, okay, so there must have been a trolley system here at one time as well. Yeah. And so there's just a lot hidden that way, like what you're talking about. And I had another thought come in my mind, but I do know they've diverted these canal waters and dried them up, and
filled them
most
in
of them are just abandoned.
And so Tartaria and the canals of Tartaria, like in China specifically, their grand canals are over 2,000 years old, they say, and that they just restored them and that they built the original infrastructure, they say, thousands of years ago. So it's like they've been there for a very long time, and they had to be so advanced that we've only now been able to like start reusing them and be able to like upgrade them and bring them back onto line, where when this catastrophe, takeover, hijack, reset happened, it set us back and we lost that sort of capabilities.
Right. I saw Cowgirl in Arizona about the trolley car tracks and so forth down in Tucson, Arizona. I live in the Verde Valley, and there's a place not far from me called Jerome, which it's sitting on the side of a shape that looks like a pyramid shape that's called Cleopatra Hill in the Black Hills. In the Black Hills of Arizona, and there's it's known for copper mining and other things, said to have been founded around 1890, 1900, and it looks like Malta with the same kind of walls and cobblestones. I went into a restaurant not far from where I live the other day, and I saw a picture of the trolley car tracks in Jerome on the wall that are buried. So they're like digging them out. And I see a mud flood community when I go there every time. It's fascinating to me. And then on the other side of what's called Mingus Mountain, going across that, you come to Prescott, and that's clearly a mud flood area. And when you go downtown, you can see the horribly slanted streets and things that don't make sense. But they have at a street corner next to the courthouse, they have a utility box that has these pictures of old Prescott, where they're digging out the trolley tracks on the main street. And the trolley line was said to run for only like 7 years, or even 5 years, 1907 to 1912.
Right? Like why would they build this massive infrastructure for a decade? It's right. So idiotic. And then you see the trolley carts being pulled by horses everywhere somehow.
Right. At the beginning, so around 1854, you start seeing trolley cars coming online with mules. And then sometime around the 1870s, 1880s, they're starting to be electrified. And then somewhere around the 1920s to the 1940s, by and large, they're gotten rid of. It's after the invention of the automobile. They had a replacement for the trolley car system. Cheap, going everywhere, not polluting, that they could replace with their vehicles that they made a fortune off of gas and oil and things like that. And so they got rid of all of that as soon as it was not needed anymore. And there's a few places that are known for trolley cars, but they used to literally be everywhere also. Part and parcel of this civilization, very highly advanced. And I see it as a benevolent society. I absolutely see it as a benevolent society, and that it wasn't at war with each other, because the level of integration worldwide. I mean, you find the same infrastructure all over the earth. And I think when they gave us a new narrative, they turned it into war and death and disease and fighting, empires fighting each other. And I think the original empires were not fighting each other. I think they were the same civilization, the same names that we hear about, but they weren't at war with each other, because I don't see any other possible explanation for how everything is so much the same all over the earth. And you were talking about Tartaria, and I've looked at Central Asia, and historically the Tartarian Empire was in Asia. So China, Japan, Korea, Tibet, the Central Asian republics, all through there. And you find a lot of canals. I followed an alignment going through there and found a lot of canals in Central Asian republics like Uzbekistan, and in Tashkent, a beautiful canal there called the Angkor Canal, Ankhor, which sounds Egyptian, which I believe the civilization, it was all part of the same thing, and it got separated out. So Egyptian and Hebrew and all of this, I think it was all one, and everybody was in harmony and in alignment with the heavens and the earth. Sorry to take off on that, but I'm like, that's what I'm seeing.
No, I love angles. I love looking at things at different angles. So it gives you, and it adds another perspective, doesn't it? It's a little bit more. So I love it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we have not been told about this, so that we can come to informed conclusions about what's actually taken place here. But they don't want us to know that. You know, they want to completely
all of us
control
coming
everything
together. And shout out Old World Florida, Dr. Longo in the Paul's chat. We got to get you, Michelle and Paul and Longo on together to do a Moorish America episode and pre-Columbia America episode in the future too.
That would be epic. That would be epic, mate.
And my mother's family is from Florida and Central Florida around Tampa.
Yeah, you've been boots on the ground down there many times and done a lot of episodes on Florida.
But I didn't see the earthworks until 2016 after I started waking up to all of this stuff. And I'm there to take my mom to an assisted living, and I'm seeing pyramids and I'm seeing earthworks along the interstate. And I've been back a couple of times, but you know, it's there. So that's that part they're hiding. And I want to just quickly, if I may, show you guys a couple of things.
And take your time. We still got, we're only half hour and we got another hour, I think. So.
Okay. So I showed you that. I've got so much information, guys. I'm sorry.
Don't apologize. We love it.
Michelle, while you look for that, I can show you that image of the ley line that I've pulled up. It's only one image, but you might, because I know you're a ley line human that loves, like you'll know these ley lines. So if these are real ley lines, you'll know what they are. I don't know what this is because I pulled this image off Google, but when I looked at it, I was like, wow, this is exactly where I've been researching and finding all these nuggets. So I'm just going to present this one here. And hopefully you can go, yeah, bang, that's it. Here. This is it. I don't know what this is, but this one here, I pulled it off of Google. So it starts from down here through Bristol, all up the West Midlands is exactly where I was for the last couple of months up here. Going through all them geopolymer structures around here. I've spent a lot of time in Liverpool, going underground, above ground, going around the castle, in the parks, in other, like around the grounds of the cathedral, and also over in Nottingham as well. And I found that phenomenal that this literally marked everywhere that I've been, this here. So I don't actually know the name of it or anything like that, but it's, when I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, that's where I've been. So if you know what that could be, Michelle, that would be incredible.
They removed ley lines from maps starting around the 1540s, between the 1540s and 1580s. The old maps, if you look at them, they have ley lines on land and sea. And then with Mercator, Gerardus Mercator, he removed the ones that were on land and just had the ones on the sea. And eventually all we get are maps with longitude and latitude.
Yeah.
But these geometric ley lines used to be all over, and they're hugely important. And there's a lot of information. I believe that they're a form of consciousness. There's magical things that happen on and around ley lines. And not only that, but I just did a series not too long ago following some long distance ley lines that I found on the model that I use.
It's not Leyline Jeff. Is it Leyline Jeff?
I'm sorry?
Shout out to the 420 people watching right now in the live chat.
How many people here?
Yeah. 422 right now.
Nice number.
So anyway, there's a lot of information to be found here, and I think I know of a number of people that just have a lot of connections to these ley lines, and you may too, Paul, if you've been on them without knowing them about that, because I know that happened to me before I knew about them. I've lived on a lot of these in the States.
This is why this image struck me and like hit me hard. Even though I'm not aware if these are real ley lines or not, because when I uploaded it on my Instagram, someone was like, "These ain't real ley lines. You've drawn these." And I was like, "No, I haven't, mate." But when I see this image, I was like, "This is everywhere where I've been." And I was like, "I can't hide that fact. It's unbelievable. Like, it's condensed in Liverpool, down at Nottingham, and all down the West Midlands." And I just thought, wow. And when you actually look at the geological structure of the United Kingdom, and you look, this is actually going through a whole load of limestone and sandstone. I mean, I just thought, wow, that's mental. But that was the image. I just wanted to see what you guys thought of that.
So somebody mentioned something about the line of Albion, and I mentioned the Bolinas line earlier. Gary Biltcliffe and his partner Carolyn are dowsers, and they doused a major alignment from the Isle of Wight up to Ferride Head at the tip of Scotland, and they called it the Spine of Albion. And there's 33 nodal points from the bottom to the top, and there's a feminine line of energy that crosses over, and a male line. You know,
well, like the
like that. Yeah. And so
very Walter Russell esque of how the universe cosmology energy works.
And I read his book called The Spine of Albion a couple of years before I started doing my own research. And I went to England or Britain in 2010 with an unawake friend of mine. If it had just been me, I mean, I would have been like the Cornwall and all these other places. But what was interesting about this trip, we spent about 4 days in London, took the train to Reading, rented a car, and
when was this?
2010.
Oh, right.
And then drove down to, I kind of was in Avebury for a little bit, went to Stonehenge, drove down to Salisbury, over to Glastonbury. My mother's family is from Bradford on Avon. We went there, went to Bath, which is nearby.
Beautiful.
And then we drove up to Scotland. And our big activity was finding a B&B to stay in. Because she wasn't awake at all. It was like really uncomfortable trip for me in a lot of ways, because I wanted to do something completely different, and she was on the touristy thing. But anyway, I'm mentioning this because we went up the Spine of Albion on that trip, and I had no idea that was taking place until I read the book. It's like, oh wow, we were there.
Yeah.
And one of the places, Paul, if you're familiar with Shap.
Yep.
So we went past Shap.
Yeah.
Which I did not know at the time was like an ancient temple site, like Avebury. Called a serpent
Actually,
temple.
I'm not aware of this place, Michelle, and I need to write this down. What was it called?
Shap.
What, CH?
SHAP.
Oh, I have never. I study English maps to look for places to go to, and I've never ever come across that. So I need to make a little note of that place.
Well, they've taken down the big megaliths that were there. If you look up Gary Biltcliffe on YouTube, Megalithmania presentations, because that's where I first heard about his work. He talks about Shap, and it was very similar to Avebury, which is what they call was an ancient serpent temple. Again, a lot of the original stones are gone. There's still quite a few at Avebury, but apparently most of what they had at Shap is no longer there. So anyway, I was going up this ley line without even knowing it about 5 years maybe before I knew I was on this particular alignment. And it's a signet alignment. CYGNET, Signet the Swan. And there's a lot of swans on that alignment too. So like in where Shakespeare was born.
Where was that? That's near Warwickshire, isn't it?
It was in gosh darn it, Morton on Marsh. Hang on just a second. My brain is short-circuiting right now. Okay, Shakespeare's birthplace.
What's mad is I drove into a town or a city a few weeks back, and it said the hometown or birth town of Shakespeare.
Hang on, his hometown. I'm just not Stratford.
Stratford upon Avon.
Yeah. So there's a lot of places with swans along this particular alignment, and it's it's a, Cygnet is the Swan constellation. It's a mirror of that.
Really? So like they've named everything, all these swan things, and then also the swan constellation in the sky alignment with it. And it's so similar to like all these different alignments with the towns and the different astrologicals, like with the one that's intersecting the two blood moons, all the Salems that you've also done the episodes on, Michelle. Like, it's just so much.
They were big ones, weren't they? The Salems. I remember them.
Yep.
I remember them information nuggets.
And at the time I was traveling on that alignment, I didn't know any of this, but I did notice that there was a lake in Morton on Marsh that had a little swan house. Stratford is known for its swans. We went on a little boat trip.
Oh, one of the swans.
There's a lot of swans there on the river.
Yeah, because I think you can actually ride swans, can't you? You know the boat-looking swans. Did you see that?
The pedal boats.
Yeah.
Yeah, pedal boats.
Well, they had the pedal boats, and then they had. We weren't on a paddle boat. We were on a little boat trip. But anyway, there's just a lot of really interesting things. But again, like I said, it's like there's a quality to these lines that correspond to things like that. It's more than that, but it's like this civilization was aligning heaven and earth and the associated energies connected with that. So you find certain things in certain places. And are you guys familiar with what's called a zodiac, a landscape zodiac?
No.
Yeah.
Actually, I can work it out. Really, it is what it says, isn't it?
So it's like the landscape. Zodiacs in the landscape. And Anthony Thorley, if you write down Anthony Thorley, there should be a YouTube video about a presentation he gave at a Megalithic Mania conference years ago. But he talks about landscape zodiac that he's identified, where like different towns or streets and towns have the characteristics of the different zodiac animals or whatever they are. It's quite interesting. Anthony Thorley did that research on landscape zodiacs. So I would look into that.
There's also another map. I don't know if you've seen it. It got flown around, I think, just before Christmas, and it was a map of the United Kingdom, and it had they're not the ley lines that we're familiar with, but it was another load of grid lines. That's probably the best word to use. But along these lines, you could see written underneath, it would be like a line going straight up the United Kingdom. And it'd be a line of 9, it'd be a line of like stone circles, or it'd be a line of temples, or it'd be a line of certain churches. And everything was in line going up the country. I don't know if you guys have seen that map. I think that was flying around on Telegram.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but there's a lot of things to put together. And I totally agree that Shakespeare's not what we're told. That's a whole nother ball of wax, or Pandora's box, or whatever you want to call it. The church he was the church he was supposedly buried in Stratford has a curse if anybody tries to steal his bones, if you go into the church. So it's
I don't mess with that.
Lots of big question marks there about what was going on with that. I was talking with BurnEye a little bit before the show, and I want to show you Kansas or ancient Britain in Kansas.
Yes, please.
And just some of the things that I found. Again, none of this was supposed to be here, so it's fairly easy for them to cover it up.
Right, because they claimed it was all just glacial erratics. Everything was wiped out by the glaciers of the last ice age. Oh, you mean cataclysm?
Or created by the glaciers. Advancing and retreating created a lot of these landscapes.
Yeah, destroyed everything while simultaneously making these impossible glacial erratics that just every single thing they label glacial erratic, it's like you look at it and it's like the physics of it is impossible. It's like these giant boulders balancing off a cliff with like on an edge of like this. Sorry to rant and get off topic.
So I was following cities in linear alignment that I found. I did a series of 4 alignments, and this was the first one that I did, starting in Wichita Falls, Texas to Des Moines, Iowa. And so I've gotten a lot of information back from this, and it's there. I mean, if you start following those kinds of things, a lot of stuff comes out of the woodwork that you wouldn't necessarily be able to put together, because you find the same things from city to city, you know, courthouses that look like they couldn't have possibly been built when we were told, and those kinds of things. So this is in Flint Hills area of Kansas. I believe Fort Leavenworth is in Manhattan, but that's a little bit beside the point. Point that I want to make, as I'm looking at what's here, and I think you see the same kind of thing in around Sheffield and the Peak District National Park you were mentioning earlier, Paul, and the Yorkshire Dales and Dales National Park and the moorlands. You see, you know, all of this stony protrusions in the landscape.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tall grass here. So it's like the densest coverage of intact tall grass prairie in North America in this part of Kansas. But as I'm looking around, I'm finding pictures of Kansas that look like Great Britain.
Wow.
From Neolithic times.
How, right? How, with their narrative.
So, and Neolithic Britain was supposed to date back to 4000 BC. You know, and then I found these kinds of things in the Flint Hills, like the Teeter Rock here on the left. And it was said to have been a monument erected for James Teeter, the landowner located near the former Teeterville and Teeter oil fields in southeast Kansas. And these are all examples of structures here on the right that you find in the Flint Hill area. And there's more than 270 such structures that have been located and documented in the Flint Hills area of Kansas. They're all over Great Britain. So this is Kansas here, and down here you see what you find in like the Orkney Islands off the northern coast of Scotland. You've got a very similar standing stone here. You've got a very similar underground passageway. So this is northern Scotland, and this is Kansas.
Incredible. There's also another place on the most southern point of the United Kingdom, and it's an island called Portland. That place has Portland Island, Dorset. That place is identical to the Orkney Islands. Absolutely identical.
So this is in Norfolk. And I'll give you an example of something else here in just a second related to that, Paul. So this is in Norfolk in England, Grimes Graves. It's a Neolithic site that is the only flint mine open to the public. Go away. And again, remember, this is in Flint Hills, where I just showed you. So that's called Flint Hills. There's a flint mine here, right here. You've got the standing stones, you've got the passageway. And this is in, you know, Flint Hills in Kansas on the left, and you know, you get the same kind of structures.
So what is going on? What do you think's going on here, Michelle?
Right, like it's round. So it's terraced. It almost looks like there's step pyramids, but the conical pyramids too. Like those are literally everywhere. That's massive terraforming.
This is identical. This is
everywhere.
So they don't want us to know that. That's why they do that. This was a land free for the taking, with hunter-gatherers. They didn't build anything. I have to think where it is. Hold on just a second. And again, this goes back to why I just emphatically believe this was a worldwide civilization, from ancient to relatively modern. And I'm going to show you a place off the coast of Siberia. And BurnEye, you talked about the megaliths in Siberia when you were talking about the megaliths of Montana.
Right? And they're so
all across,
huge.
All across. I'm following an alignment here. It's a circular alignment from Merida, Mexico, or Merida, Mexico.
And I was about to say, like, also down in Ecuador, the Cocos Caves and like the giant megaliths of like this same gigantic scale as that we're finding in Montana and Alaska and everywhere. I'm going to shut up and let you go.
Okay, so this is what I'm scrolling rapidly for. This is Wrangel Island in the Arctic Ocean between the East Siberian Sea and the Chukchi Sea. Okay, I'm leaving the North Pole and I'm coming back down here. So this is Wrangel Island here, and I already knew what Chesil Beach looked like on Portland Island because I've studied that as well a little bit.
Yes.
And Gary Biltcliffe, who did the Bolinas line dowsing, has looked a lot at Portland. So this is the Chesil Beach Causeway on Portland Island, and this is Cape Blossom on Wrangel Island.
Wow, what a connection. Wow.
Right, Michelle, you connect the dots like no other.
I'm absolutely stunned here. So this is that like all stones and shingle then? Same as Portland in Dorset.
I'm sorry. What was your question, Paul?
Sorry. Yeah. So the one you've just presented, is that the same material as in like shingled stone as in Portland?
I don't know, but it really looks like
it's identical. It really is. I've actually stood. I've actually stood here and took. I know this is done with a drone, but where that photo is taken, looking back at the beach, I've stood there and took that image. And the one that you're presenting here it's identical. Look at it. It's identical.
And this was information that came up through tracking alignment. So when I say I got a lot of information in the process of following these alignments that I found on the what I call the North American star tetrahedron, with the apex in Edmonton and the northern one and the apex of the southern one in Merida, Mexico. And I extended the lines out, and then I did several series where I was just looking at all the data points on each one, and I found stuff like this. This Cape Litka on the eastern coast of Wrangel Island here looks like what you see in the Galapagos Islands off the coast of South America, off the coast of Chile. So this one is, okay, wait a minute, hang on just a second. Okay, so this one is Wrangel Island. This one is the Galapagos Islands. And this one is on the Black Sea.
So how did you come across this, by the way? Because this is not sort of information you could just like...
I came across this tracking alignments is how I found it. Looking at different places that were on my spreadsheets.
Wow.
Now this, okay, so this design right here at this church ruins in this city, which was said to have been established as a settlement in 1926 for displaced families, and that it was abandoned in 1994. So this is actually a design that I've seen all over. So you compare the church with the residences that they had set up there for the people that lived there for a little while. You've got this. And I'm just going to show you what the Jerome, Arizona Municipal Building looks like. And it has the same.
How across the world do they, no communication, no this is, it's just the narrative is crumbling, their facades are lies, and the truth is coming out. Beautiful works like yours, Michelle, and Paul, and everybody else now being inspired, seeing it, going out, doing the boots on the ground, and sharing it all with us.
So, and I've seen this pattern on the eaves in other places as well. But you know, it's the same idea. I've seen it in Germany. I've seen it in China. So Jerome is an interesting place.
Everywhere.
One of my favorite places, and you've got these, you know, it's it's a pyramid called Cleopatra Hill. There's a lot of stuff to find here, and it's definitely mud flooded. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and it's known as a haunted city as well, ghost tours and things like that. So finding comparisons like that is how I was able to collect all those images to start putting those things together. And, you know, another reason why it's like, you know, to me, there's no way all of this happened randomly. I just can't even.
It's just impossible statistically, like mathematically. It's so impossible. But then it's also equally impossible for those who are like stuck in the matrix and the narrative and like the cognitive dissonance that they can't cross over. But once you do, once you see it with new eyes, you literally see it in front of you everywhere. And it's like, no matter whether you're in Siberia, whether you're in Beijing, whether you're in Sydney, Australia, or in Liverpool, the UK, or in Kansas with Dorothy, or up in Alberta, Calgary, it's literally everywhere. And it's so awesome for it all coming out. Big up, Kirk John. Thank you so much for the support for the super chat.
So I just want to quickly introduce the topic of Malta and share a few things, and then turn it over to Paul, since he spent so much time there and has done such great work about it. I found the same kinds of things in Jerome that I see in Malta. Stone walls and cobblestones that are very old. But it was supposed to have been founded in the late 1800s and has the whole cowboy story to go along with it. And what's there in no way matches what the narrative says. But people buy the narrative because that's, you know, John Wayne and the whole Wild West thing. And that's the area where I live. It's a whole big deal. And, you know, it's like, it kind of, there's hardly anybody here that really knows that I do this. It's too far out of their experience. But let me talk about Malta real quick, because I wanted to show an example from this long piece that I did on Malta a couple of years ago. And everything I put up on YouTube starts out as a blog post, because that's how I do my best work. I'm more of a writer than I am a speaker.
And on your website, where all of your blogs started, lifting the veil, is it?
Piercing the Veil of Illusion.
Here's the Veil of Illusion.
Yeah.
Right. So much. Like all of Michelle's work, all the sources are all documented in her blog post on the website. And I will Hippie Shake 29, shout out sister, if you don't mind posting the link for that in there, one of the other mods. You can go and see all of Michelle Gibson's documented research and the sources of it all.
And actually, when I go through and I do my research, I'll usually start out when I look at Wikipedia, I start looking for things because basic information on when it's founded and that kind of thing. And then I just kind of go with the things that strike my attention, like canals and courthouses and other places. And so it's the result of my research, and it's all, it's findable. It's definitely findable. And it's been an amazing journey, because when I started looking at all these places, I had no other reason to look at these places except that they were data points on my spreadsheet for these alignments that I had found. And, you know, again, that's kind of how it all started for me. I'm just not, you know, I definitely don't have a style where I would feel comfortable just totally speaking. It's like, I'm a writer. And I realized when I first started doing this, I mean, I was just going to blog, and then I was going to make one video, and it's the first video I ever made, and somebody subscribed to my YouTube channel. And I thought, well, geez, now I've got to make videos. But it's an easy format to turn into a video. And so I just, you know, basically record the audio from what I've got in the blog and match the picture, and I've got a video.
Right, and it's amazing, and it's just so awesome of how the world works out and like nudges us in these directions, and the synchronicities, and just this law of attraction and the inertia that bringing us all together, and it continuing and bringing it all forward, and it's only going to continue to accelerate.
It is, and you know, this is really a grassroots thing where all of us that are doing this kind of research are bringing forward what we're motivated to bring forward, and you know what we know, and it all works to help complete the puzzle of what's been removed from our collective awareness, so we wouldn't know our true history. And you know, I wish I had a different take on that, but you know, what the world we thought we were living in isn't at all. And yes, it comes down to greed and people getting rich and control of humanity and the grid and creation. You know, that's what this is all about. That's why they've gone through all of this trouble to invent a new civilization and a new narrative, was so that we wouldn't, you know, so that they could control everything and get rich off of it and give us the scraps, if that. All we're getting is scraps, and we don't even know it.
Crumbs. Yeah, exactly. I call them crumbs. We get crumbs. We have to go around and pick the crumbs up. That's what we're doing.
Exactly. And we think we're doing good.
There's so much, literally. There's packets of crumbs, and we're literally handling little nuggets, and there's just so much.
Exactly. So I'm just going to show a few things about Valletta. And what I did was essentially, I went around the walls of the city of Valletta. I was, you know, filled with star forts and all kinds of things. But a couple of things that I wanted to show is that this St. James Bastion, one of the 4 important and massive bulwarks, and largely carved out of bedrock here, looks very similar to the Sphinx on the Giza Plateau of Egypt, which was also said to have been carved from bedrock. And my personal opinion is that the star forts were serving a function on the energy grid, like batteries or something. But this is very ancient, and Malta is like a Disney World of masonry. And it also got heavily bombed during World War II. Like right after Malta entered the war, they started getting bombed. So I'm going to turn it over to Paul as the hands-down expert.
Let's go.
The boots on the ground, the man who keeps going back to Malta. Tell us all about it.
No, I'm going to be back there in less than a month, and I'm looking forward to it. So, but I've actually, like you said, Michelle, what part? I know you said you walked around the whole of the Starfall, but I don't know if you noticed it. Sorry.
No, I was going to say I just looked at the walls around Valletta, and what I found when I looked there. I didn't look at any of the other islands or anything like that. I just looked at that one area, and that was quite a bit of work there, just doing that.
Well, I know it's unlimited. That's the thing. That's why I'm going back there. It's unlimited. But one thing I will say is, I don't know if you noticed that the actual star fault of Valletta is just one part of the bigger star fault or star city. Did you notice that? Because it actually, the star shape actually radiates out to another town called Floriana, and that's where I lived. And that map of Floriana, I've got a map on my laptop, and that map's from 1695. And everything is the same layout, the same roads, the same blocks, the same, everything is exactly the same. And I was lucky enough to go and live in one of the apartments in the blocks in Floriana. And these buildings are 400 years old. And when you go into the basement, it's like you described it. It goes from the stones into this like bedrock. But it seems to me that they've carved, or it's geopolymer, the apartments into the bedrock and then built on top of it after that. And it's I don't know how to say this really. It's how can I say it? It's all connected, in my opinion. It's all connected. It's all connected underground. And because we've built on top of it, you don't really notice it. But you can go underground from Valletta to Floriana, and then from Floriana to, these are useless to some people, they don't know how. You can go across all of the island underground, from Star City to Star City underground. And I found that very fascinating. But if you wanted to ask anything about the sorry, I've got mind blank, a bit tired. About the Malta, I'll let you know. I also went into Fort St. Elmo. That's another one I went into, which is quite interesting.
Didn't you go to underneath Fort St. Elmo in that area?
Yes. I've got footage of that as well, and that was incredible. The way I got inside of that was on the side, around the back of Valletta. You can actually take a walk, and it's all smashed up around the back bit, and it's just left for like people to have a little tourist walk along the sea. But there's actually a massive cavity in the wall, and then you can get inside of that. Me and my friend climbed in, and we actually was in the set of what do you call the films? Midnight Express and things like that. All them sort of films. We were just walking around it, thinking, "Wow, this is incredible, absolutely incredible." Then you've got the Lascaris rooms that are connected to that underground, and then someone actually told me that you can get from Manuel Island underground, under the sea, to Valletta as well. So I don't know if that's something I want to look for as well.
So how many star forts do you know of that are on Valletta? Because there were quite a few when I did my little tour of it.
The whole island, right? Like the entire thing is pretty much, is it not?
Yeah, right. So basically, you've got the three cities. The three cities, which is, I can't remember, it's Singlia, Cospiqua, and somewhere else. They're all one humongous star city. You've got another one, obviously, Valletta and Floriana. That's another humongous one, broken up into two. And then you have another one, which was the old capital, which is Mdina, the silent city. And one thing about all of these put together is they've all got multiple entrances around the current ground floor. So it's like they're all apartments and all the work and everything. It's like they're living quarters. That's what it seems like. They were like inhabited. So they obviously had a function. They obviously generated power somehow. They had nice resonance. They had water, clean water flowing to and from them. And it seems like they had apartments built into the sides of them as well. Unless these apartments were added at a later date, I don't know. But one thing I do know is it is just abundant of apartments.
Yeah, it's let me look here real quick. I mean, when I was there, I found the Inquisitor's Palace. So the Inquisition was there early, which is not a fun thing, with their instruments of torture and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
They bombed the Opera House during World War II.
Have you seen the Opera House?
I've seen what's left of it, the original. So let me pull that up here real quick.
Because if you actually, I don't know about the original, but when you walk around the Opera House, there's actually a load of limestone geopolymer around it, and you can see that it was built on top of. So I'd like to know. Look, I can't even show you. What are these arrows?
I'm showing the slanted sidewalk, like there's more underneath there, and that's like a mud flood.
Yeah, so you see where these arrows are pointing, and then you've got this wall with the stairs. This is actually going over a geopolymer part of the structure. So when this place got bombed and these stairs and that all got taken away, you could actually see the original structure before this was here. And they've left that on show now. So when you go there now, you can actually see the original structure. And the buildings behind are actually made out of it. Obviously, it's, in my opinion, it's all man-made. So they've made the stone houses out of all of this. Now look, you might be able to see it here. So it's not even my mouse. But you see, you've got these little trucks going along here. Next to them, on the left-hand side of these trucks, you can actually see wells. You can see chase marks for water or cables to go, and you can also see systems. You can actually look down at the systems from here. And we don't get told about that. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so they want us to believe that was built in 1866.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's definitely not. It's definitely
looks like a Roman temple, but yeah, that was 1866. So
they did good work then. That would have been a year after the end of the American Civil War. So,
and that's saying they don't build them like they used to.
Exactly. We can't build like that today. And then it was destroyed by a direct hit in 1942 from German Air Force bombers.
And obviously, it was the most bombed place in the world as well, right?
Just this is crimes against humanity in world history. You know, like it's disgrace what's been done, how much has been destroyed. But we're figuring it all out now, and we're going to prevent it from happening in the future and rebuilding these positive energies. 500 beautiful souls and awesome beings watching live right now on this Good Friday.
And I think, the identity of the Knights of Malta and the Knights Templar, even, all of that got hijacked by the controllers.
Oh yeah, infiltrated and taken and divide and conquer.
We did that.
Right, we did it, or it was slaves.
That was us.
Do you plan on going back to Malta, Michelle?
I'm sorry.
Do you plan on going back to Malta?
I have not been there. I just did that research.
On Google Earth. Was that on Google Earth?
Yep.
Ah, right. Yeah. Oh, when I go back there, there's so much stuff because you've got the place called Il Foss, which means the ditch. And in the ditch is where all the nuggets are. There is a couple of people have actually went on holiday since I've left there. And they asked me for locations to go to. And the people went to these places, and a lot of it's been blocked up already. Which is like, it seems like they follow the channel around and then just go around and block stuff up.
What up, dudes? Hey, guys. How's it going?
Hey there.
Easy, geezer.
I'm on my lunch break. I've been listening. I was lurking.
How are you going, mate? You right?
I just want to give a public thanks to Big for creating the beginning and the ending of my videos. He did the intro and the extra for me.
He's a top dog, isn't he? He's a top dog.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, I've been listening, and I'm we got a rain day today, but I'm expecting some new animals to the farm today, so I'm waiting on a guy to bring emus, swans, Japanese imperial ducks, and peacocks. So I'm just waiting on a phone call right now.
That's all right then, mate. Is that your uniform, is it?
Yeah, I wear these shirts. They're real. I can wear them out. I buy them for $5 and they're cheap. I can tear them up, so I don't have to look good on a farm.
You still look good from the coop.
So my issue right at the moment is that I was completely free all day, and then something came up in between when I confirmed with BurnEye this morning and the start of this. So I'm about at the end of time that I have. But I know that we need to get together and talk, all three of us plus BurnEye.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be able to hang out.
No, that's
absolutely right.
Can I just add? I think we should, because I was a little bit unprepared for this because obviously my network issue. I've been floating around everywhere, so. If we were to get a proper date together with a structured episode, I could literally.
Oh, we need to do many together.
Oh, yeah, I've got a hard drive with everything I've got from around the United Kingdom and Malta, and I know that we could put on probably something that blow the internet up. We like if I was given like a bit of time and I could get all this information together, we could put something together that's phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm always prepared because I've got my blog. I can just pull that up, no problem.
Load it up and boom, there it is.
General idea.
Years
I
of
go,
content.
Beeks, what do you think of the chapel at Duke University?
Oh yeah. I think I've done a little bit of digging into Durham, and there is definitely mud flood evidence in Durham. There is one interesting thing is forget what's called Black Wall Street event happened in Durham as well. So that's something interesting to look into. And with that, you'll find a lot of the mud flood evidence. They have pavement light in Durham. It's definitely mud flood. I haven't really come out with any of my North Carolina evidence yet because I'm still collecting the data. And I want to do it properly.
And there's a whole improbable story that goes along with the Duke Chapel also. I mean, this is beautiful, beautiful structure.
Beautiful chapel, yeah.
Arches and organs and bells, and it was said to have been built, I want to say, in the 1930s or something like that. And there's just too many examples.
Anything before 1943, I consider suspect.
Yeah.
And even some of those I wonder about.
I'm with you. I don't know if we've discussed it before, but I'm with you on the thing about the possible 1943, the what is it, the Philadelphia experiment, possibly having something to do with changing what happened or our reality.
Yeah, and I'm actually
the Mandela effect with it, right?
Yeah, I'm actually even more convinced of that than I was when I first started talking about it.
When I started researching mud flood, I'd keep before the early 1850s, 1900s, but then I was finding all these anomalies, and then when I opened up my research to 1943, everything opened up, and it just made so much more sense.
Yeah. Yeah, something happened. I don't understand the mechanics of how that could have happened, but I don't either. That there's a connection.
I have many. I'm collecting a series of buildings. I call them anomalies, where I have 2 mud flood buildings on the same exact location, and I find it over and over and over. There's something going on we don't understand. Exactly.
We can just take stabs at what it could have been. I do have a video / blog post that I'm starting to find physical evidence for that connection, and it's called Recovering Lost History. Find the exact title here. That's long. Recovering Lost History from the Estuaries, Pine Barrens, and Elite Enclaves off the Atlantic Northeast coast of the United States. I started to find physical evidence for a connection to the Philadelphia experiment.
Wow, I'd really like to see that.
So you can find it on my YouTube channel, and you can find it in my blog.
I originally started off my Raleigh research thinking that it only went 1 level deep. And I have a friend of mine owns a major demolition company, and he went to do a building to demo a building recently, and he thought that it didn't have a basement. And I said, there's going to be a basement. And not only did he find 1 basement, but he found a sub basement. And so basically there's 30 feet below ground level that they didn't even know existed. So it's there's a lot going on.
There is. So there's a Pine Barrens in New Jersey, there's a Pine Barrens in central Long Island, and there's a Pine Barrens in Cape Cod area of Massachusetts, and they're in a line. They're in an alignment with each other.
Does that have anything to do with the Jersey Devil?
It could. I mean, they invent. I don't know. It could. Somebody asked me that in a comment. I don't know. I didn't really go there. But what we're talking about, if anybody doesn't know, so when I first started doing this research, and this is part of the path that I was on to uncovering this. This is books that I've read and things like that. Peter Moon is a researcher from years ago, and he did a lot of work around the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk project. And this area goes through Montauk as well that I'm talking about. And so I started having this idea of this time loop between 1492, which was the year of the fall of Granada in Spain, and Columbus's first voyage, and 1942, which was midway through World War II. And it was, when I first started looking into it, 1942 was when the Philadelphia experiment took place in July of 1942. You see that year, you see 1943, but I think it was 1942 because
I'm going from memory.
Because the controllers were into anagrams and things like that. And of course, they want to write that off as conspiracy theory, and that never happened. But the first time I ever heard about the Philadelphia experiment was probably around 2006, 2007, from a source that I considered valid. And so basically what I landed on was that there was a time loop, artificial time loop, created by the controllers between 1492 and 1942, with 1717 as the midpoint year. And when I started looking at the history from 1717 on up to the present, I found a lot of anomalies. That was the year that the Premier Grand Lodge of England was founded by the Freemasons. And there were a lot of other things that happened around 1717. That was the same year that the Anno Lucis of the Masons was adopted, which was based on the Anno Mundi of Bishop Usher of Ulster, which is the whole 6,000 years of Earth's history. Other things happening around that time, and just found a lot of anomalies. I mean, it's an occulted timeline. That's what they did. They occulted it. And
I agree. I like what you were saying earlier about the civilizations were actually under the same names, but they were kind of taken over. I think that's in a nutshell what you said. And that really rings a lot of truth to that, because, people are asking, was Tartaria the entire world? No, I don't believe they were, but who was here? And then we don't really find a whole lot of other names. So that really makes me question, really, was all the countries called what they're called today? They were just under different leadership.
So today's names, they've changed a lot of names, but like the empire names would pretty much be this part of this empire. And that's where I go to the Moors. Right. And when I say Moor, it goes back to ancient Mu. And so what I see is a continuous civilization from Mu through Atlantis on up until relatively recently. And then they've somehow flipped the timeline onto this loop that I'm talking about. And I don't know where fake history ends and history begins. I don't
That's
know
a very
what year
hard
that
thing
is.
to understand. Now, I'll tell you one thing am really interested in is the fact that I believe that the blacks were here in America. That what we know as American Indians, the Native American Indians, were actually blacks, and they didn't bring them from Africa, that they were already here. And I think that's something people need to really look into.
Yeah, and that would be the Moors, M-U'-U-R-S, known as the Moors. But that's where you get the ancient Mu and all that other stuff. But again, the overview that I'm trying to give is that this was a unified worldwide civilization that was aligned with heaven and earth.
Absolutely.
And that did not happen randomly. It just didn't.
No.
And it didn't happen
very connected
with people fighting each other.
No. They weren't perfect though. I don't believe they were perfect, but they weren't fighting each other like we do today.
Right. They weren't suffering from the lack of knowledge that we are, because it's been removed. So we wouldn't know. And
I don't think they were hungry. I don't think they were poor. I think they were very advanced in their knowledge, in their spirituality.
Yeah, I do too.
But I don't think they were perfect.
If you look up Hyperborea, I think they were closer to it than what we are now. In a continuum, I think they were closer to it.
And definitely spiritually.
If you look up Hyperborea,
but they weren't perfect. They fell. Sorry, Michelle.
No, I was just going to say, and I'm going to have to run here, but if you look up Hyperborea, so this is what it says. Okay. In Greek mythology, the Hyperboreans were a mythical people who lived in the far northern part of the known world. Their name appears to derive from the Greek word beyond Boreas, the god of the north wind. Despite their location in an otherwise frigid part of the world, we're told, the Hyperboreans were believed to inhabit a sunny, temperate, and divinely blessed land. That they were giants and, you know, just in very, you know, sick, not sick. They were healthy. And, you know, I think that's a description of the way things were. We were much bigger. You know, where did the climate change come from?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
have you looked into Mansa Musa?
Yes, I have. Of course I have. Of course I have. I think I've done a video on the guy, yeah? The richest man in Africa.
Yeah, and the stories behind that. There's much more to that. I'm just wondering if you guys have gone down that rabbit hole, because it's I think there's a connection between Africa and South America, and then later North America through migration through that story.
Or colonization, like repopulating areas. Definitely 100%. Right.
Well, basically the Berlin Conference in 1884, Bismarck was in charge of it, and they divided up Africa among the colonial powers, and then they kind of went in and, you know, tore everything up.
Although it wasn't Mansa Musa that came over here; it was his predecessor, and he brought, what was it, 2,000 ships over here and was never seen again.
Yep. And he's kind of a visible face to it, because he wasn't just the richest man in Africa. He was said to be one of the richest men in the history of the world.
Right.
But I think there's more to it than that, than, you know, just one person. I think, you know, our whole history has just been.
He's just the one that took over the reign after the guy left to go to Africa. So, he went to find the edge of the earth, and he was never seen again. And then you have stories in South America of Black people and Black giants, and you have the gold that came over here that's been tested, that was found from Africa.
Yeah.
So there's legends of this in South America and, you know, Latin America.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do. You know, trying to put the puzzle together and figure out exactly what's gone on here, but it's not what we've been told at all, not even close.
No.
You know, we can just go by what we know and what we see and what we have access to, and that'll just be part of it. You know,
and I think I've told you this before, but you're dead accurate about the trains and canal systems running together throughout everywhere, and they've been destroyed. Absolutely.
Yeah, so a lot to think about. I am going to have to run, but we'll do this again.
Yeah. I mean, what I'm going to do, Michelle, is I'm going to put a file together of Liverpool, and then I'm going to also get a file with that ley line. I'm going to do a separate video with that, to be honest with you. But what I'd like to go through is the images I've got with Liverpool with you. I'd love to do that.
That would be great.
Right.
All right.
And yeah, so we will organize
research, and
we'll organize several more of these, and we will organize the next one probably with Campbell as well. So it'll be probably maybe a little later in the day or whatnot. We know you got to go, Michelle. We know you got to go, Paul, and Feegs. You're halfway through the workday. Happy Good Friday to all, and bless all of you 504 beautiful souls tuning in right now from Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, Rumble, and who knows what more. All the channels. It's epic. There's going to be several more of these. Bless all of you for all of the work that you do. Any closing last thoughts, my friends?
Yeah, and you know, I just say that along those lines, you know, we're all working really hard and doing our best to get out the information that we've discovered and have a passion to do. So please bear with us, and I would just, you know, ask, you know, any comments to be respectful, because we're just out there trying to get this out there, and we're all being bringing forth our piece of the puzzle as sincerely as we can.
I've just
and
got one
and,
more
and we're
thing.
really, I'm just going to say, and humanity has really been under an existential threat, and they can't lay a finger on us. They have to tell us what they're doing, and that's why they've been lying to us. So humanity awakened is what they fear the most. I don't see them as being invincible whatsoever. I think they're on their way out.
Oh yeah.
But part of it is this process of people, the Great Awakening.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add here, disclaimer, Michelle, you are the one that brought boots on the ground to YouTube. You know that. I get people telling me all the time, "Oh, you're the boots on the ground." But Michelle, you are the one that brought them words and identified it as that. So anyone that watches says that Michelle is the one that come out of that. So big up for that, by the way. It gets thrown around a lot, and everyone says it's me. Oh, you did it, but no, Michelle is the one. So I'll just let everyone know that now while there's a load of people in the house.
Well, thank you, Paul. You've been on my journey. Biggs has been on my journey a couple of years ago, connected with me, and
I found Paul through you, Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle, you kickstarted my YouTube. Like, if it wasn't for you, like saying Paul cooks in Malta now, like I'd still be plumbing on a building site somewhere. So I'm grateful. I'm really grateful.
Oh, definitely. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I did it as kind of a joke, and she thought it was pretty good. I'm like, okay. She saw something I didn't see.
And on this Good Friday, may everyone pray that we continue this development. In 2 years from now, we meet up in Malta. We'll do a live conference and meet up. All of us, Campbell and Luke and everyone, Michelle and Paul, of course, make it to Malta. We'll keep the ball rolling. And from there, we'll have to be like, hey, Graham Hancock, we're in Malta. You got to come here. And even if we don't agree with all of it, he was a major inspiration to a lot of us bridging in and everything he's doing. So
but I'll tell you what, and with all due respect to people like Graham, because I got my start with Fingerprints of the Gods.
Absolutely, yes.
So he's a legend in the
OG
area. But I'll tell you what, it's all of the grassroots people coming together like us that are going to like leapfrog.
Yep.
Yeah.
And bring it together even more, because it's it's not just one thing, and it was much more integrated, much more all over the earth, including North America.
All right, I think on that note we should leave on a happy ending. On a nice.
Thanks everybody.
Ending.
Thanks for joining us.
Michelle, it's good to see you, by the way, after a long period.
Yep, it's great to see you. Great to see you in person, Biggs.
And I was just Biggs, it's good to see you as well. Burn, I speak to you on such a regular basis. It doesn't even matter, mate. So it's good to see you again.
For sure, brother. And happy Easter to all of you, and Good Friday. And we will make sure that we do many more of these again.
And Luke is getting better. He'll be back soon. He's been really under the weather, but I've been talking to him, and he is getting better. We will be seeing Luke soon. He's starting to get his smart acidness back, so he's feeling better now.
All right. Much love, everyone.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Bye, Paul. Bye, Burns. Bye, Michelle.
All right, I didn't end it yet because I was going to do a little Brucey bonus on my BurnEye channel. I just posted the link for the live of this stream on BurnEye, where it's going to end with the rest of Moon. There he is. We got Luke. Luke for the Brucey bonus. Ancient Historia is back in the house. Look at that. Sadly,
how you doing? I don't know how loud my mic is, so we're going to have to just roll with it.
So let's see if we can get Beegs back on for the Brucey bonus. We still go in with Luke. Come back.
So this is, how's my mic sound? Because this is my first time.
Perfect, brother. Happy Good Friday. Blessings, good Luke.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. If you couldn't tell, this is the mic.
It's good, man. Look at that. Stepping it up. No more potato for Ancient Historia. And,
no, not indeed.
Okay, so now I got to shill my channel, BurnEye's Mind Third Eye Science Guy, in the Paul Cook live chat. Here's the channel. The live stream continues the Brucey bonus over on BurnEye. So come over if you want to watch it and subscribe. Here it is again, bro.
I really need to shave. I look like I don't even know.
Don't we all? It's okay. So do I. So do I. It's okay.
I can't grow a proper beard though. This is all I get.
Brucey bonus. Still live on the BurnEye here, so we will go like kaboo and that as I shut it down on everything else. Oh, and maybe I'll leave it live on Paul Cook too. His backup, get Paul some more subscribers on his backup. But no longer live on the main Paul Cook, no longer live on Autodidactic. Bye, Autodidacticians. Come over to BurnEye if you want to watch this Brucey bonus.